All right, we're now scaling up to the ecosystem level. Ecosystems are communities with living organisms and all the biotic and abiotic interactions. So biotic interactions with other species, within the species, and with the environment, and abiotic factors such as light, water, temperature, pH, etc. Ecosystems can be small, such as the tide pools that we've talked about, found near the rocky shores of many oceans. And they can also be very large, such as the Amazon rainforest in Brazil. Ocean ecosystems are the most common, comprising 75% of the oceans of the Earth's surface. And we know that ocean ecosystems consist of three basic types. So the shallow surface ocean, the deep ocean water, as well as deep ocean surfaces. So, the ground like hydrothermal vents that we've learned about. The shallow ocean includes biodiverse areas such as coral reefs, and the deep ocean is known for its large number of plankton and krill, which are small crustaceans that support it. We know that photosynthesis occurs in the upper surface layers of the ocean, where phytoplankton perform about 40% of all photosynthesis on Earth, which is incredibly important. And earlier this semester, we also learned about freshwater ecosystems as well as terrestrial biomes. Ecosystems are complex and they're also dynamic. What that means is that ecosystems are not static entities. They change over time, and this is often in response to disturbances, both natural or human-induced. And here we're looking at the effects of a hurricane disturbance in Puerto Rico. The ability of an ecosystem to remain at equilibrium in spite of disturbances is called resistance. The speed at which an ecosystem recovers equilibrium after being disturbed is what is known as resilience. Last week we discussed community succession, and in many ways that is one way to measure ecosystem resistance and resilience by monitoring what happens to communities following a disturbance and how long it takes to return to initial conditions, if it ever does. Some disturbances may be so profound that the ecosystems may never return to their initial conditions. And there's a lot of discussion in conservation right now about how returning ecosystems to initial conditions after disturbance may not be the right end goal. In essence, it's not effective. Restoring ecosystems to some minimal level of diversity, biomass, or productivity may be enough in those terms. Productivity within an ecosystem can be defined as the percentage of energy entering the ecosystem that is incorporated into biomass at a particular trophic level. Biomass is the total mass of living or previously living organisms within a trophic level in a given area. And usually we use carbon units to define this. So for example, in ocean ecosystems, that biomass could be the biomass or the carbon of the phytoplankton seen in green here in the satellite image. The energy that moves through ecosystems originates from the primary producers that use solar energy to power photosynthesis or chemical energy for chemosynthesis. In this terms, for chemosynthesis, if you think about the bacteria living in the deep ocean hydrothermal vents. We define gross primary productivity or production as the rate at which solar or chemical energy is captured and converted into chemical bonds by producers. Producers use that energy to respire, to grow, to reproduce. When producers assimilate energy and convert it into biomass, it is called net primary production. Net primary production includes all energy that is not respired. So NPP, or net primary production, is equal to gross primary production minus respiration. So let's think of this like a paycheck. Gross primary production is like the amount that you earned based on the number of hours that you worked and the energy, okay, or money or carbon produced per hour. Net primary production, or net primary productivity, NPP, is the amount that you actually take home after all the taxes are taken out of your paycheck. So think of respiration here as a tax. So gross primary production minus your respiration equals your net primary production, or your take-home paycheck. Herbivores consume only a fraction of the total primary producer biomass available, right? So you can think of this like the primary producers of the savanna, such as the grasses and the plants, whereas those herbivores that you see, those grazers only consume a fraction of those plants and grasses. This is because they can only digest a portion of the biomass they consume. Therefore, secondary productivity is the amount of assimilated energy converted into new biomass, so that could be growth and reproduction, by herbivores. And so in this case, we're following ecosystem energy from the lowest trophic level, so your primary producers, upwards. To calculate energy transfer efficiency, we can use a few equations. First, we refer to consumption efficiency as the percentage of energy in joules in a trophic level that is consumed by the next higher trophic level. Whereas assimilation efficiency, or assimilation energy, is the percentage of consumed energy by organisms that is actually assimilated in the consumer's body. So the material that is not egested, or that could not be digested, and is basically pooped out. And finally, we can calculate something called net production efficiency, which is the percentage of assimilated energy that is used for growth and reproduction. Okay, so why are these important? Well, they give us a way to measure the transfer of energy from one trophic level to the next, but also to understand energy efficiencies. So, for example, we know that a caterpillar, which is an ectotherm munching on a leaf, has a much greater net production efficiency than an endotherm like a squirrel, because endotherms use a lot of energy for homeostasis, whereas ectotherms use solar energy and behavior to regulate their body temperatures. Whereas humans, squirrels, dogs, cats, we're all endotherms, and we all use a lot of energy to maintain an internal body temperature. Net production efficiency also has important implications for thinking about the global human food supply. It costs about just 1 cent to produce 1,000 dietary calories of corn or soybeans, and these are staples for human populations. But it costs about 19 cents to produce a similar number of calories by growing cattle for beef consumption. And the same energy content of milk from cattle is also expensive at about 16 cents per 1,000 calories. And finally, we can use the concept of energy efficiency to model energy flow in ecological pyramids. We can do this by comparing the total biomass among different trophic levels, which you can see here. For example, in an aquatic ecosystem in Florida, the majority of biomass consists of plants, whereas insects and fish make up only a fraction of that total biomass. And in comparison, in the English Channel, those biomass estimates are quite different. There's a completely different composition of living organisms, and we can see that the zooplankton comprise the majority of the biomass in this ecosystem. We can also calculate the number of individuals in a given area. In some terrestrial biomes, the largest number of individuals is not always plants. In temperate and tropical forest, there's many more actual individuals of insects, which we can see here, even though their biomass is not as great as plants, but the number of individuals is greater. Whereas in grasslands, we can see over here, the greatest number of individuals is actually among the grass plants, whereas the herbivorous insects, the predatory insects, and birds make up fewer individuals of that ecosystem. And finally, we can look at ecological pyramids in terms of the energetic composition, which is always a true pyramid because of the inefficiency of energy transfer from one trophic level to the next. There is much more energy stored in plants than in insects or fishes, and that is because of the loss of energy or the inefficiency of transfer moving from one trophic level to the next. Usually we say as you move from one trophic level to the next that it's about roughly 10% efficient, meaning you move 10% of your energy or your carbon to the next trophic level, and you lose about 90% of that energy or carbon to respiration and maintenance cost, etc. So you can see here we move from 20,000 to about 3,000. So 2,000 would have been 10%, so roughly there. And then if you move from 3,368 to 383, you can see again that it's a transfer of about 10. Okay, this week to finish up, you're going to review your peers' concepts maps in perspective on trophic cascades. And then, of course, after that, provide feedback on your own reviews. And I'm looking forward to seeing everyone's contributions on the discussion board. This is going to be about toxins that may be hidden in the food that we consume. This week, we do not have a new Perceptive assignment. Use that time, hopefully, to be able to schedule in some self-care, go for a walk, or go to the art museum, maybe enjoy the park before your exam 2, which is next week. Thank you.